Now we are now live.
Live?
We're live, so you can swear as much as you like.
I don't swear, I'm a good girl.
That's a fucking lie and you know it. Yeah.
Hello, Finn.
Hello, Andy. How have you been?
Really good. I'm loving this sunshine. Although today absolutely pissed it down. Oh, there we go, swearing.
Hey,
Absolutely
there we go.
pissed it down.
It has only been, I'm just looking at the recording, it's only been 27 seconds and Andy's already fucking sworn.
I'd like to call that a record, but you know.
It's just going to be an entire podcast where I'm speaking. You just hear beep in the background whenever Andy presses the button to talk.
I've got a friend at work. This is kind of writing related. I've got a friend at work. She swears so much she tries to self-censor with it. So instead of fuck, she says, "Oh, fudge nugget."
I love fudge nugget. You've told me this story before, and I've adopted fudge nugget into my daily lexicon, especially when I'm like in a family-friendly setting and I have to change my swear words on the fly.
It absolutely tickles me every time she says it.
Fudge nugget. Do the one. Sugar. They're all food related for some reason. Hello, Ghosty. Ghosty's come to say hello. Stop swearing, Andy. That's what Ghosty's saying. Good boy.
So how are you, Finn? You got some good news today. Well, not today.
I've got some good news. I've been very stressed this last month or so. It's been a while since we recorded this because me and Ash have been house hunting. We've been renting for about 4 years, and without telling you the boring information about schemes and stuff like that, recently our situation has changed, and therefore we are more available to look for houses. And yesterday we found out we've actually got accepted on a mortgage for a house. So I predict that maybe June time we will be moving into our brand new house that we don't have to rent, and we can do what we want with. We can put pictures up, Andy.
Congratulations! And no deadly stairs.
Well, the stairs are on the other way round, so this is going to be difficult to describe in an audio format. But on our current house, the stairs don't have a door separating them, and you have to go up a step to then turn left, then go up steep stairs to get up to the second floor. Whereas in the new house, we have a door separating the stairs away from the living room, and they are on an angle as well, so it's like an L-shaped stairs, and they're not as steep, I don't think. But obviously, that'll be Andy will be the judge of that when she comes over for the inevitable housewarming.
And the inevitable fall downstairs.
Please don't do that. We don't need anyone suing us within the first month of moving in. But yeah, so that's the big news that's happened in our life. And I also got a raise at work as well. Not that I'm bragging. But
you are adulting.
I am definitely adulting. I'm definitely adulting.
Adulting is strong. With all this going on, you've not really had much writing time, I'm guessing.
Well, you say that, but I have had some time at work where I've been a bit of a lull, and I have been writing mostly at work at the moment rather than in my own free time. There's not been massive amount. Oh, tell a lie, sorry. No, I started a new script idea, which I mentioned in a previous podcast. I've not planned it out. I've just kind of like done the first couple of scenes, like completely stream of consciousness kind of thing. They will need refining and they will need changing, but I'm happy with them so far. I rewrote the pizza script that we mentioned in the previous podcast. So now there is a second draft of that pizza script. I think it still needs a bit more work before it's, I think, producible, but I'm happier with the format than the one I did 10 years ago. There's a couple of jokes in there that I've replaced because they're a bit outdated and they weren't particularly funny. But I'm happy with its stage at the moment. I haven't touched the police procedural script in about 3 months, but that's literally just because of work, life, that sort of thing. Yeah, how about you, Andy? What have things been going on since the last podcast?
Life's been a bit up and down.
Okay.
Settled into a pretty decent writing routine, I'd say now. So I'm working on my time loop script.
Oh, yes. Okay, yeah.
I am struggling with. I said to a friend that I'm about 2 pages away from yeeting it into the archives and never touching it again.
Okay, so when you say you're stuck, have you wrote yourself into a corner? Do you not know how to go where to go next? What's the issue with it? Do you know?
I spent 3 hours writing. I
Woo!
completely smashed my word count target. I full on extended this whole scene that I'd been working on for ages, and then I sat back and I just looked at it and went, "This is shit."
Oh, I hate that. You're like, in the moment, it's like, this is the best thing ever. I can see this on TV now. Yeah. And you read it back the next day, I'm like, was I drunk or high when I wrote this? Because this makes no sense.
I went through all the emotions, so I've put it down. I'm resting it. I'm determined I'm going to finish this book. I absolutely love it as an idea. I love the concept. I love the story. I love my main character. He's like my best friend now, because I know him so well. But it's just gotten to a point where it's stuck on technicalities, and
the script knows what it did, and it's
Yeah.
in the naughty corner until it realises what it did.
Yeah, and the imposter syndrome just kicked in hardcore at the same moment. On a bit of respite from it, I also have been writing a short story.
Woo!
It's just going to be a portfolio piece more than anything. It was inspired by a holiday that I took recently. On
Every little
jolly
helps.
by myself. Yeah. It's always good to have that 2 projects on the go at the same time.
Yeah, like I think I mentioned this in the previous podcast, it's nice to have a back burner script as well as your main script, and they'll be indeterminately changed. I can't speak today, which is ironic for a writing podcast. But yeah, it's nice to have a couple of projects on at the same time, so you've got somewhere to kind of escape to when that one becomes a bit of a whale.
Yeah. So I definitely want to keep working on this script because, like I said, I love it. I love the concept. I love everything about it. I just really need to get it working.
You need to kind of either let it rest or kind of pummel it into submission and get through to the next scene.
But do not press the delete button.
Or that. Unless it's warranted. Like a spelling mistake.
I have a question for you, Finn.
What's your question, Andy?
Are you the same person you were 10 years ago?
Definitely not, no. When was 10 years ago? It was 2014. If we were going literally by the date we're recording this, in May 2014, I was still in the closet. I hadn't come out yet. I hadn't met Ash. I hadn't met Andy. I hadn't met any of the friends that I have now, apart from a very small minority of them. I'm very kind of introverted and very kind of like, I didn't have that many friends. I wasn't that outgoing. YouTube was just a mere blink on the horizon. I was a very different person in 2014.
How would you feel if you went through all the growth that you've been through in the last 10 years in about an hour and a half?
It would be equal parts exciting, traumatic, and dramatic at the same time.
That's exactly what we want to do as a writer, isn't it?
I see where you're coming with this. Yeah, you definitely go on a journey of different emotions and feelings throughout the last 10 years and so.
I think it's part of building our characters as people.
It is. It's like trying to make your characters seem lived in, seem three-dimensional. What kind of ways do you employ to kind of make your characters feel like characters and not just two-dimensional sketches?
So our topic for today is character building.
Woo! Character building!
How do we go about this? What's your plan, Finn?
So, when I go about making a script or a story, characters are a big part of that. They drive the plot forward. People use them as like place they can see themselves in, and it's very important to get that right very, very early on. Without characters, a story doesn't exist. So, with regards to me, to answer your original question, one of the first things I do with characters is I will interview them. And there's a lot of different versions of this technique, but basically there's the 50 questions about character. There is pretend your character is in a police interview room and just interview them with questions that they would normally answer, like Ghost who just stood there. Yes, I'll tell them. I think he's calmed down now. Yeah, so I will ask my characters certain interview questions. I've actually got a list of them on my Google Drive that I refer to, especially if, say, I'm writing a story and I get a bit lost as like, what's this character's motivation? What's this character's strengths, weaknesses? What do they want out of this particular scene, shall we say? So I have wrote myself a little list of things. I'm not going to go through the whole thing because the podcast will be like 4 hours long. But I'll just go through the different sections of different questions that I would normally ask. So it's my character dossier document that I go through. So you go through your usual stuff like what's their title, their name, the nicknames, that sort of thing. Star signs, date of birth, what they look like, what would they normally carry around with them every single day. Like phones, wallets, purses, glasses, jewellery, that sort of thing. Whether they can drive or not and what car they drive. Then I've got a section which is basically just family and friends who are immediately close to this character, Who do they like the most in their family or friendship circle? Who is the least favourite member of that family circle or friendship circle? And then I've got a section for like psychology, so more kind of like the inner workings of this particular character. So like, what kind of vices does this character have? What do they dream? What are they afraid of? Their greatest regret? The most important and least important attribute they see in other people or like in other people? Their strengths and weaknesses? Their fatal flaws? And kind of like things like table manners, like are they polite and respectful, or are they kind of more kind of brutish and disrespectful, should we say? Then I've got another section which is kind of like history stuff, so like what was their childhood like? How educated are they? Who do they look up to when they were younger? And then I've got more about their personality. Are they maternal, paternal, or aloof? Are they social, independent? Are they friendly or more hostile? Are they introverts, extroverts? Are they more of a party animal or a home bird? Are they calm or stressed, ordered or chaotic? Then I've got a whole section on love and relationships. So what I would say as well at this point is none of this has to be in your script. This is more kind of like background stuff that you can feed upon when you're actually writing that script. So you can feel free to just ignore whole parts of this when you're doing your own character. But it helps me to kind of like paint that kind of background around the character and make them feel more three-dimensional. So I've got like romantic histories, their turn-offs, their turn-ons, and then the last little bit I've got is more kind of like contentment. So what do they do for fun? What's their favourite things? That sort of thing. And then I'd end this inquiry into their character with like a 3-word summary. How would I summarise this character in 3 words? And then anything else that I could add on to the notes and stuff like that. Anything that doesn't quite fit into what I've already mentioned beforehand. After I've gone through that, it does give me quite a detailed dossier of all of my characters.
That is incredibly detailed. I feel very disorganised in comparison to that.
It helps me with regards to the police procedural as well. There's a lot of characters in there that felt a bit kind of two-dimensional because I'm like, this is supposed to be the murderer, this is the murderer's accomplice. But like saying it like that sounds quite two-dimensional. It seems quite like a Cluedo game. Whereas if I can make it more kind of like Murder, She Wrote rather than Cluedo, it seems a bit more fully fledged.
I can see so many benefits to doing it that way, and you definitely don't have to allude to majority of that in the script, but it can definitely inform on their behaviour and their decision-making patterns as well, can't it?
Exactly.
Wow.
Let me flip this over to you, Andy. What do you normally do to kind of get into your characters' heads?
Not that.
Not that. Just disregard the last 15 minutes.
I actually don't have a process when it comes to developing my characters. They've all just been kind of ad hoc, pulled out of the air. I've suddenly fit the story around them, and as I'm writing, I'm learning about the character and what they do that way. I'm wondering if maybe I should be a little bit more prepared. If that's going to be more beneficial.
It's an equally valid way of getting to characters' heads. I think we've both approached it from the opposite angles, basically. So I've gone more detailed, more planning, and you're kind of more like, I will see this character as I go along, how they feel. They will speak to me rather than I will speak for them, kind of thing.
Yeah, I'm whimsy and full of plot holes.
I love that. That's going to be your new bio, isn't it? Andy, whimsy and full of plot holes.
So, going back to one of my really old prose manuscript, not a script, I wrote this incredibly detailed story about a futuristic dystopia kind of setting. I'm following one particular character, and when it first started, the idea I had in my head was he's an old man, he's been out and surviving for so long, he's grizzled, he's broken, he's out in the world, he's lonely. Again, loneliness is a massive theme with me again, but there we go. But as I was writing it, I wanted to know more about his history. So I had this snapshot of a story of him as the old man. I got really into the idea of actually, how did he get to this point? Why is he this grizzled old man? Why is he so damaged? So I then started to write prequel, essentially, for him as a younger man and how he got to this point. And I actually found a really interesting story coming out of that maybe I should work on a bit more.
And maybe that kind of like informs how the character should move on from this point, and it can bring out parts from that previous story that can actually happen on the current timeline of that story.
Yeah. So I wonder if I had done it how you had, doing that Q&A with the old man, would I have fleshed out his history like I have done in the same way?
I have just sent you an email with the full list on it for you, if you ever needed to use it as a template.
Wow, that is a lot.
Yeah, I think it's about 3 pages. That's without anything in it.
That's incredible.
There you go. I mean, there's a lot of websites that will have like a list of characters, a list of questions, sorry, to ask your character. And I kind of like grabbed them from different websites and kind of bind them together. Added a few more of my own.
Do you find doing it in this Q&A style, you find what the characters want and drive is for the story? Or does that still come out as you're writing the story?
I think it's a bit half and half. I think when I'm doing the Q&A, the interview kind of part of it, I will kind of know a rough idea of what their motivations, their fears, that kind of thing are. And when I go into the script writing phase, the characters will sometimes tell me what their motivations and their fears are. Which sounds a bit weird to say it like that, but like it happens like organically as you're writing that character will have some affinity to another character or have a hostility to another character. Just go by one that I'm currently dealing with at the moment. As I mentioned beforehand, my police procedural script is kind of like on the back burner. It's resting at the moment. It's in its little bed, it's resting, but I'm coming back to it, don't worry. But the main reason why it's resting at the moment is I've got to the point in the script where the main character is going to be wrongfully arrested for the crime, and I realised when I got to that scene is like I haven't actually wrote what the police's motivation for wanting to incarcerate him is, and so I was going back through his dossier that I'd wrote years ago, just kind of like go through like what would be a convenient reason for this police force to kind of try to imprison this character or try and pin this murder on the character. And I was like going through it and I was like going, the main character is in his 60s, so I was like, it's got to be something from when he was younger. And I was like going back, if he's in his 60s, then it'd be around about the 70s or 80s, and what was kind of like apparent around the 70s and 80s. And my first thought was, I think it might have been a bit later than the 70s and 80s, but my first thought was like maybe it was something to do with him defending someone's honour at a football game or a rugby game or something like that. So I was like, I don't want him to be like kind of like, oh, he'd actually murdered someone in the past kind of thing. I don't want it to be like a serious crime where the police in this universe would be like, yeah, of course he did it. Because I don't want that to be the conclusion. I eventually settled on that he'd been charged with either battery or some kind of like assault against another person because he was defending somebody else. I need to still kind of workshop it a little bit in my head, but that was the reason I had behind it. But at the moment, I'm still kind of like stuck as to like how to implement that in a way where it doesn't kind of glorify that particular crime, but also kind of gives the main character a little bit of hello ghost. Gives the main character a little bit of what's what I'm looking for? Kind of a little bit of grit to them.
Yeah, and you don't want to give it a pause that's not authentic to the character now.
Yes, I wanted to kind of like feel like that character could have done that in that situation, and not feel like I'm just throwing it in to make him look a bit edgy.
It's not like having, a grizzled old man down the pub who's yelling at the footy at the telly who's previously been incarcerated for a white collar crime.
Yeah.
Blue collar? How does that work? I don't know. Either way.
I'm still working on it, but that's kind of what I'm going. That kind of like thing, I wouldn't have thought of that during the original dossier phase, during the original interview phase. Kind of like, does he have any past convictions, that sort of thing. Until I got to that point in the script, I'm like, oh, maybe he has a past conviction for something, and maybe that's what's kind of the police in this part of the story would like to put him in the fold for murder of this particular character.
Yeah.
And that's kind of how I went through. But it felt like a little bit like he was telling me that rather than I was planned that. If that makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely. So when you're writing the story, how much of a growth arc does your character go through?
It has to have at least a bit of growth. It doesn't have to be massive. Like sitcoms, characters famously never grow. They never change. They always go back to where they were at the beginning of the story. But on long-running sitcoms, there is like a long-running arc. In Scrubs, the main character is always seen as a bit of a screw-up. But by the end of the series, they're a fully-fledged doctor. They're very confident in their work, even though they might be a little bit kind of the same kind of valuable person in their personal life. And there are lots of sitcoms where like characters grow. Not just sitcoms. Like in dramas, it's a lot easier for characters to grow because dramas have that space for characters to go on a journey and then come out of it a different person. So I think growth is a very important part of character building.
It's just very difficult to time it right. When you're working with feature manuscripts, it's going to be, what, 90 pages?
Yeah, easily.
You've got to portray an amazing growth in such a condensed space of time. Whereas with the book manuscript, there's no set amount of pages that you have to write. We've got that time to play around with the character, grow the character. We can even go like 3 books, 4 books, 5 books. We've got that scope for growth. But with the screenwriting, it's so much harder.
Yeah.
And you've got to do it in a show not tell kind of way.
Yeah, that's also a point as well. I mentioned in the previous podcast that the line that I have to kind of walk with my drama script is not to make it this is what's happening, this is the reason why it's happening, and these are the people involved, rather than having the viewer come along for the ride and show them how it happened rather than tell them how it happened. It's difficult.
Yeah. I always think of Daenerys Targaryen.
Go on.
Season 8 of Game of Thrones. Oh. Sorry to bring that one up.
Are you referring to how poorly handled her epilogue was?
Yeah. It's an entire character growth arc. She goes from, this weak woman who's at the mercy of her brother, she's at the mercy of whoever's rich enough to entertain them, to this incredibly strong, determined ruler, to then fulfill the family destiny, essentially, isn't it?
Yeah.
Utterly destructive. And I think they handled it so bad, the timing was just so off. It's like the characters just turned around overnight and went, rah, I'm going to kill everyone.
It did seem a little bit like a coin flip.
Yeah, it felt so inauthentic.
I think people may have warmed to that a bit better if, say, the season was a bit longer. They had more episodes showing how Daenerys went from a strong, redeemable character to kind of like evil, kill everything character. But I think trying to sum that up in such a short season, I think she did suffer. She was one of the characters that kind of left on the editing board, shall we say?
That's an example of bad character building.
Exactly, yeah. When we're talking about growth, it has to be gradual. It doesn't have to be... Yes. It depends on the situation, obviously. Sometimes people can have like a snap epiphany and be like, everything's changed after that point. But when it comes to like TV and film, that rarely happens immediately. It's normally like an Act 3 situation rather than a Act 1 or Act 2 kind of thing.
Yeah, and it's not like that in real life either, is it?
How many people do you know have had an epiphany and changed their entire personality and outlook on life just on a flip of a coin?
None that I can think of off the top of my head. It's always been some sort of gradual growth.
Yeah, exactly. It's normally like an inciting incident, but then it's not like a quick, oh, okay, now I need to change everything. It's more of a gentle rise or gentle fall of a character.
Yeah, there's usually some sort of an event that creates that cause for growth, or cause for, I don't know, what's the opposite of growth, would you say? Wilting of the character, essentially?
Wilting, yeah. I'll go wilting, yeah.
Yeah, we'll go with that. We're creators, why not? We'll go with that.
It's ours now, trademark, TM.
The character either grows or wilts after the event, and it comes out in so many different ways as well, because I'm thinking of myself as a person. I can say that before a certain event in my life where I was made homeless, I was a completely different person to the person I am after it.
I would agree with that as well. I've noticed a big change in you.
Yeah, but it took a long time after it for all the negative effects to come out, for me to recognise what was coming out as a negative and what was coming out as a positive for growth.
Yeah, and it would that's literally like what you need to invoke in your stories as well, is like that gradual realization.
Yeah.
Nobody ever has a realization that's like a slap in the face. It's like it will come gradually after many things have happened. But again, every script is different, so if you're writing a script that's kind of more kind of schlocky and slapstick, then maybe there can be like a quick heel change or heel turn. Or if you're writing something like a cartoon or something like that, that would probably lend itself more to snap judgments or quick judgments. Sorry.
Yeah, I mean, you could probably play that for comedic effect quite a lot.
That's true. That's what I'm going with. I think with that.
Yeah, sudden U-turns on characters could be quite funny.
I mean, I think that's part of writing comedy as well. It's like a lot of characters will just be U-turns. They won't have any opinions of their own. They will just go with whatever opinion is the most popular in that particular moment. There are characters that exist in media that are like that.
I think I've always got to have my character growing and changing. And I'm always wondering what's their motivation to keep going, what's going to be the next big thing that happens for them to grow.
Yeah.
I don't want to batter them with event after event after event to force this growth.
That's the difference as well. It's like, it's not, this is a series of things that are happening to the character and they will change at the end of it. It is, the character has to drive that. The character has to be like, that's happened to me, I'm going to feel like this, which is going to make me feel like this and do that. And because I've done that, this is going to do this. And it all kind of like happens as a consequence of that first event. But it's not a series of events, and then the character decides to change at the end. That's not authentic.
No, it just lands too hollow. The story I'm working on at the moment, the film script that I'm working on, part of that is really difficult because the character is growing in a static environment. So I've got a time loop setting, essentially.
Yeah.
I don't want to go into too much detail about the plot. But the character is stuck, and I'm trying to grow him. I'm trying to get him out of this time loop. But he's been in it for so long. Like his whole persona has developed around this time loop, constantly happening and happening and happening. And I'm finding that a little bit difficult to write because it's a very enclosed space for him. So it's an enclosed space for me as the writer.
Is it like a case where it's like there's not much variation that can happen from this point on in the story?
No, so there's not much variation for growth either.
That's a good point, yeah.
So I have to like force the plot along to help force the character along, but in a way that's authentic to both the story as a time loop and to the character.
So would you say like the plot and character are kind of like they're connected, they're kind of symbiotic, they don't exist without the other?
Yeah, in this particular instance they are.
The thing is like the character and the plot, they are neither the leader of the ship, they are part of the ship.
Yeah.
If a character leads the plot or a plot leads the character, they both have their downfalls.
You can swing the pendulum too far one way with that.
Yeah. There's a balancing act. It's all about balance when you're writing a script. It's a balancing act between having the character have agency and having the plot move along as well. But yeah, there's a difficult balancing act trying to get them both working simultaneously.
Absolutely, and it's quite difficult.
Of course. And I will also say as well, another way of building characters that I've just thought of now, if anyone is familiar with like role-playing games, and I don't mean like video games or anything like that, but I mean like tabletop role-playing games, a large part of being a dungeon master, say, if you were playing Dungeons and Dragons, is making stories, making characters, and making them cohesively fit in a certain environment. So I've only DM'd about 3 times, I think, in my life. But I find them quite helpful when it comes to like making stories and stuff like that, because you're basically doing a script, but you're doing it live for everybody. You learn kind of certain aspects of making a story together on the fly, effectively. So another option about maybe helping you to build your characters is treat it as if it was a role-playing game, if it was a D&D game, if it was a Call of Cthulhu game, that sort of thing. What kind of mechanics would you have to deal with there, and can they translate to script writing as well?
That's an excellent point. I never thought about that.
Thank you. How much the pretty face?
Then again, I haven't played like tabletop RPGs very often. The times that I have, I hate the character building process.
That's obviously,
which you think as a writer I'd love, but no.
That's obviously very different. With the character building in an RPG, it's more very static. It's very kind of like, you'll have a certain number of this, you'll have a certain number of that, you'll have a spell in this, a spell in that. Whereas during a script writing thing, it's a lot more fluid, a lot more open.
It's not just that, it's I have to embody that character in the RPG. I have to think like that character and make the decisions in a very short space of time. And that kind of pressure I do not work with. I mean, I need the edit button.
That's the thing. I will say this as well. Like, despite the fact that I've played D&D for a while, when I'm playing as a character, I don't speak in the character's voice. I find speaking in that character's voice difficult in an RPG compared to writing on a script. Because you don't have the whole toolbox, you only have part of it. Whereas writing the scripts, you have everything available in the toolbox, which can be daunting because then you've got like everything available and we didn't know where to start.
Yeah. We played, I think it was called Shiver. It was based on good old B-side horror flicks.
Yeah.
And we were supposed to be a travelling group who comes across this haunted house, and what kind of characters are we? And I sat there for ages. You got people going, "Oh, I'm going to be this mystery wizard." I can't remember half of them, but there were some really good ones. And I was sat there and I was like,
My name's Joe. I'm kind of there. I've got a pointy stick.
I spent so long on this character. I ended up with this old man who's got a twiddly moustache, and he's a travelling snake oil salesman. Basically, he sells love potions, and he's a little bit sleazy. And I was sat there thinking, this is the complete antithesis of me. Antithesis. Oh, it's just, I had no idea how to play this character. Every time we took a turn, I was like, I don't know what to do.
And the thing is that if it's too alien to what you are aware or you are accustomed to and what you're aware of, it can be a bit difficult.
Yeah. But when I'm writing my characters in my plays, my screenplays, my books, I can really get into my characters' heads. I can properly embody these characters. I know what they're doing. You know, like I said, one of the main characters is probably like my best friend at the minute because I spend that much time with him in my head. I don't know why I can't translate it.
I don't know what it is. I don't know what that gap is that you can get it from your head into the page or from your page into the theatre of the mind in a RPG, shall we say.
Maybe I'm just not destined for RPGs.
This is taking a bit of a tangent when we're talking about D&D on the writing podcast, but it's all relevant. It's all relevant. I promise.
It is relevant because have you watched The Last Witch Hunter?
I have not, no.
Oh my goodness, that's based off Vin Diesel's D&D character. Yeah,
you had my attention at Vin Diesel.
Oh my gosh, you need to watch it. It's fantastic.
Okay, I need to search this up. Whereabouts is it?
Probably on Amazon.
Ah, okay, I'll have a look later on.
Actually, thinking about it, that's an excellent example of character building. He took his D&D character and created an entire film around it.
Amazing.
Yeah. So that begs the question, what comes first, the story or the character?
For me, it's the story, and the characters come afterwards. Not far afterwards, but the main crux of a story comes first, and then the characters come afterwards for me. When it comes to the actual script itself, obviously the characters drive the plot.
Yeah.
For me.
I think I'm a bit of both.
You're a plot-driven, character-driven plot person.
Yeah, I can come up with the characters quite easy, and then I wonder if there's a story based around them.
It can be the initial idea comes from a character quirk, or it can be yes, guys, a scene that a character is in. For me, it's normally scenes, and I work my story around that. And Ghost agrees.
Aw. I think a lot of my characters come first, and it's the story. Sometimes I'll just abandon stories because it's just not working.
What was your initial on your current time loop script? What was the initial trigger for it? What started it off? Was it a character, or was it the situation?
I think it was the character.
Okay.
Because I was playing... Oh, I can't remember what video game I was playing, but I was getting really stuck on something. I kept dying at the same point over and over and over again. And I was getting really pissed off with it, to be honest. I was getting to the point of rage quitting. And I was thinking of what I'd be like if this kept happening to me in real life. Like, something just kept happening. I kept coming back to the same point in my life every single bloody time. And I think it just came from there.
Oh, that's cool. I didn't think of it like that, but it's kind of like that in old video games you have like a set number of lives, and if you die you come back to exactly the same point you were beforehand or the start of a level.
How have you never thought about that? I've watched you play Crash Bandicoot.
Ooh, you're getting all catty tonight. We're not even drinking tonight.
I know, I'm on the tea tonight. That's why my words are a bit stuck and they're not coming out as fluid.
Yeah, I think for me it was because it was an idea I've had for a while. It came from an episode of EastEnders, not the whole story, but it was triggered by an episode of EastEnders. You know how they like to do a murder mystery episode every so often.
Yeah.
There was I don't think it was Who Killed Lucy Beale. It was Who Attacked Ian. I think it was. That's what sparked it off. Ian Beale is a character in British soap opera EastEnders. He is known as kind of like the slimy businessman of the square, and this particular storyline involved his wife at that point and his wife's well, they weren't together at that point. I would say like on and off lover, hitting him over the head with an award basically at Christmas, and the murder mystery was like who hit him, and that's what spawned on the idea of this police procedural with a murder mystery in it. Completely different ideas of that. Like the victim in my script doesn't get hit over the head, but it's kind of like that idea of like who done it. I don't think I've actually done a who done it script before. That's what the initial seed was. So that, I think that was hello Christy. That was the story that triggered the characters in the story for me of my own script.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, and then when you see the scripts go crazy on Netflix or whatever, just want to let you know it was inspired by an episode of EastEnders.
You're in EastEnders, dude.
I know, I watched it too much.
So, how do you name your characters? Is there a convention for that, or?
That's a good point, actually. With some of the characters, their names come quite easily. I say them in my head, and I'm like, does that sound easy to kind of say? Like, I remember when I was very young, some of my characters, like, one of my characters that I know I would never use in a script now was called Xavier Feelgood, because it felt like a cool name, but there is literally... How many people do you know in the UK called Xavier that aren't French?
Personally, I don't know any.
I just thought, oh, it's the name that begins with X. Not many names begin with X. That's a really cool name. I'll use that. This is amazing. And I'm looking back and I'm like, that name is an awful name.
Oh, no. I hope there's no one called Xavier listening to this going, what the fuck?
I like the name Xavier, but in terms of the script, calling someone Xavier Feelgood, it sounds either like an adult film star or it sounds like someone's nickname, not someone's actual name. So I nixed that one very, very quickly. For me, It's a bit of both. So sometimes the names will come very, very easily to me, and I'll say them a couple of times in my head. I'm like, oh, that actually kind of it flows off the tongue quite well. I'll use that. Or if I'm really stuck and I can't think of any names for any characters, I will use the internet, and the internet will have like random name generators, and I'll use that for some of the characters' names as well. But I won't just pick like the first option. I will pick an option that again flows off the tongue quite well. Sometimes I'll have the surname, but I won't have the first name. Or I'll have the first name, but I know I want it to be a character with like a double-barreled name, or a character with no middle name, or something like that. And sometimes that will help me kind of generate an idea of a name in my head.
Okay. Have you ever given a character a name and gone, yes, and then built their entire personality just because the name fits so well?
I probably have done in the past. I can't think of any off the top of my head now, which is annoying. But I know there are certain names I'm like, oh, I like that name. I might use that in the future. Or if I need a placeholder name, I'll just use my friends and family's name and then replace it later.
I am definitely queen of the placeholder names.
I love a placeholder name. Like, if I can't think of a particular character's name, but I know their personality, and it reminds me of somebody that I know, I'll just use their name and then change it later.
I hope there's not an Andy buried in one of your stories.
And not yet. Oh no, Andrea's been murdered. You know, start looking at me like with scaling eyes. I was like, you did this, didn't you?
We're going to be 10 years down the line. Why do you keep killing me off in this replays, Finn?
I just can't help myself, Andrea.
I do have a little story here, actually.
Go on.
I wrote a story almost 10 years ago, easy.
Okay.
It started when I was at Birmingham Airport flying to, I want to say Paris at some point. That's not important.
They start in weird places, don't they?
Yeah, that's where this one started. And I wrote about this particular character who gets brutally murdered. He gets stabbed down an alleyway after a fight.
Okay.
And you know, my main character comes across him because it's his best friend. His best friend dies in his arms. It's really depressing. It's like really tragic. It was really detailed and really gruesome. And the way I described him, weirdly, is the exact same as my partner with the exact same name.
Okay. Is it kind of like because that character reminded you of your partner?
No, this was long before I met him.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so about 5 years after I wrote this story, I met my partner. We'd gone through a situation of being eaten up, and I described beating up, essentially him, and named it him before I'd even met him.
Oh wow, that's some kind of like Final Destination like prediction shit right there.
It was bizarre. Yeah.
So we mentioned it beforehand, but don't cross Andie because she'll put you in her screenplay.
Yeah, and then for some reason it accidentally comes true somehow. I say
She's
I've
got
heard
the
those
death
predictions.
note.
It was just a very eerie chime there. Thankfully, nothing like that's ever happened since.
She's crossing her fingers, guys. I can see.
Curious one-off.
I have named one of my characters' daughters after Gina in my current script because I needed a female, like a young female name, and I was like, I couldn't think of anything, and I was like, I'll just use Gina's name. And then I'm reading back the script, I'm like, that guy actually kind of fits. I might actually keep that.
Forever.
If Gina watches this back, I can only apologise. I mean, they're not a bad character, but I just couldn't think of a name. I was like, you know what, I'll just use Gina's name. And then that placeholder name has just become the name of that particular character. So I'm like, you know what, I'm actually okay with that.
I am terrible with name generation. You know when I was younger and played The Sims?
Yeah.
The Builder Sims screen before you even start playing the game?
Yeah.
I'd get stuck for hours, literal hours, and at least half of that was just me picking a name.
I would go for the usual thing as like you design yourself in The Sims, you design your family in The Sims, and then you go around and just try and design townspeople. And I would be exactly the same position as you, where I'm like, all the generic names that they use in the game are awful. I hate these.
Yep.
But then I can't think of anything better. I'm like, oh, fine. I'll just have to do Saviour Feel Good again, then, shall I?
Everyone's saviour.
Everyone is Saviour, or some kind of version of Saviour.
I did get a note back from my editor friend about being careful of exotic names.
Yes, okay, this is something that we've touched upon earlier. What's the difference between an exotic name and a character name?
The character's being given something really outlandish and really hard to pronounce or something.
Like
Something
Saviour
that
Feel
you've
Good.
invented. No, something that you've probably invented, to be honest, because I'm very good at inventing names, I think, these days.
I mean, like, there are certain settings where inventing a name would work, like a fantasy setting or a feature setting, sci-fi setting, that sort of thing.
Yeah. But if a name's too outlandish, it does detract from the character, I think.
To go back to D&D, there are certain sections in like player creation where it's like, you can use this elven name. And you go through it, it's got like 5 apostrophes and like 7 different syllables. And you're like, I can't read this, let alone say it. So...
Yeah. It takes away from the
yeah,
immersion.
It takes away from the immersion, exactly.
So I didn't think my names were too exotic. I just kind of play around a little bit on standard names. Not enough that I end up on Facebook pages dedicated to... Have you seen those tragedies names where you say a random word but then you add all the different vowels in it and it looks bizarre?
Oh, you know, I've seen that.
Yeah, you know which one I mean.
Yeah,
I don't want to end up on those kind of sites.
I've seen like ones where it's like they spell like Kaylee like incredibly incorrectly.
Yeah, I don't do that, but I do tweak certain names that I've heard. I don't want to give away too many names at the moment because I've got them quite close to my chest and I really love them.
One that I've seen on that site is...
Right.
What is this name, Andy? Kawtneigh.
What?
Exactly. The word is actually Courtney, but they spelled it with a K and a W. It makes no sense.
What? That's the kind of reaction you don't want from a reader.
Yeah. I think that's the thing is that if you're reading a script, you don't want to be like, wait a minute, have I said that right? Am I reading that correctly? Like, you don't want to have any confusion when it comes to a script.
No. We don't want to detract any attention away from our script or the story.
I know it's frustrating because sometimes people will come up with names like, I really like this name, this is like, I've got my heart set on this name. But if it doesn't flow in a script, it doesn't feel like it's cohesive, it's going to stick out like a sore thumb.
I love the names I make.
I like the names that I make as well. There's a character in my police procedural script which I just like the name. I don't know why, I just like the name. She's got a double-barreled name. It's the protagonist's daughter's name, and she's called Marcy May. And I'm like, oh, it's a really, really cute name. I want to keep that.
Aww.
So that's one of my characters is called Marcy May. Not named after anybody that I know, just those 2 names I thought, oh, they're quite cute. I'll put them together.
I really enjoyed Stephen King's 11/22/63. It's a pretty chunky book, but it's about a guy who finds a little wormhole, essentially, and he ends up going to the past to stop the assassination of Kennedy. I don't know if you've watched it.
I haven't, no, but go on.
I really love it. I love time travel stories anyway, but there's one character in this book called Sadie,
Yeah.
Ever since I read this book, I've been obsessed with the name Sadie. I don't have a character called Sadie. I don't think I could do one. And there's not been a moment where I've written anyone and gone, oh yeah, that's a Sadie. But I love the name.
I like a Sadie. However, and not to ruin this, the first thing that comes to my mind when I hear the name Sadie is my aunt's Alsatian. My aunt's first German Shepherd was called Sadie. And she was adorable.
Cute.
I loved her so very much. I've ruined it
There's always
now,
part of
haven't
that. Yeah, there's always part of that when you're trying to name a character. You go, what about Margaret? No, I know Margaret. I don't like her.
That's the thing, is like, when I'm just thinking about my own parents as well, when they were naming me, they couldn't decide on whether to call me Adam or Luke originally. So they just decided to double barrel it. So officially, my name's Adam Luke. But I have never, ever used the word Luke anywhere. So my birth name is Adam, but I go by Finn because that's my last name.
Finn suits you.
That's the thing, is like, I'll be at work and people will call me Adam and I'll be like, it'll take me a second, but oh, that's me. Or I'll go home and my parents will be like, Adam, and I'll be like, who's that? It's like I've outgrown my own name.
Adam, don't know him.
Who is he? Who is he? Where did you find him?
My mum tells me a story about my name. So
I'm interested now. Go on.
I'm an Andrea. She wanted to call me Rio.
Yeah.
A relative, when she, thought about this idea, she said to someone, oh, I'm thinking about Rio. And his relative turned around to her and went, oh, but the kids might bully her and call her Ria behind.
A bit of a stretch, I'll admit.
And that put my mum off, so I ended up becoming Andrea.
Oh, you still got to use the same name. You just added a couple of letters before it.
Yeah, so...
I think one of my rejected names that my dad wanted to call me Tom, but my mum was like, no, I don't. I know a Tom and he's a bastard, so he's not being a Tom.
And this is the exact same thought process when you're trying to name your characters.
This is where we're going with. We weren't going off on a massive tangent. We were telling you this is the process of naming your characters. Sometimes it'll be like,
difficult.
are they a Tom? No, they're not a Tom. Are they a John? No, they're not a John.
You want to work somewhere like in a postie, because then you'll be seeing the names all the time. You'll probably get like loads of different inspiration.
If you work in an office like I do, you do come across a load of amusing names, shall we say. But yeah, so characters are very important to your script. I know I'm telling you how to suck eggs when I say that, but it's important to make sure that they are three-dimensional, they have the right name, they invoke a feeling in you when you're writing for them. I think is a good point to make as well.
Yeah, and you need to have an authentic growth.
An authentic growth as well, absolutely. Excuse me. I choked on my own saliva then. That's not going in the bloopers, shut up.
I'm not going to be queen of the bloopers this time.
No!
I haven't dropped anything, burped down the phone, broken anything.
I haven't taken an Amazon delivery. I haven't had a phone call from my mum or from Ash. Ghost has interrupted her multiple times, but it's absolutely fine.
I haven't ordered a takeaway. Finished any alcoholic drinks.
Laptop hasn't died on you yet.
I've actually done all right.
It's the one episode where you can feel proud of yourself that you haven't messed it up.
Yeah.
But yeah, so that was character building. What do you think about what we've mentioned in this last couple of minutes or so, shall we say? If you want to join the conversation, Andy, how can they do that?
They can contact us at pathtopublicationpodcast@gmail.com. They can come find us on Instagram and Facebook, both at Path to Publication Podcast. And we also have our website now, which has a very long... It's got a very long address bar, so I'll just drop the link in the show notes.
Yes. We're going to try and put the podcast up on there as well. I'm working on the first blog post as well for that website.
We have opened the forums.
And that's the forum sound that we're going to play every single time we mention the forums. But please do join our forums, chat. We can chat with you about writing, what you're currently writing at the moment. What do you think about characters? What kind of gets you into kind of like the mode of like writing a compelling character? And yeah, is there anything we missed out?
Want to introduce some of your characters to us? We'd love to meet them.
What's your most favourite character you've ever written? Let us know.
Oh, good question.
Ooh.
I think it's the Time Loop character at the minute.
Your current character, yeah.
I'm obsessed with. Yeah, I'm obsessed with it. I'm obsessed with this story. I just want to get it really. I want to get it right for him, even though he's not real.
No, I get it. It's like you don't want to let the characters down. You want to make sure that they're doing their work as well. You're doing your half of the bargain, whether they're doing the other half.
Yeah.
I think my favourite character I've written for at the moment has been Marcy May, the daughter character. I just love writing for her. She's so easy, just very mothering, very kind of matter of fact and stuff like that. And yeah, it's just the characters where you can just stream off a load of stuff and not think about it. I love those characters. I think there's another character as well that I've got, which is kind of like the battle axe of the story. And she's also very easy to write for, because I just have to insult my main character. It's great.
I absolutely love reading them.
Yeah, so
whoever gets to read this, they're in for a treat.
This is Marcy's auntie, I think. And she's very sassy. She's very, I'm just done with everything.
Yep.
But I love writing for her. I really do. So I hope I can bring her back into the next scene or so. That'll be great. I've been Finn.
And I've been Andie.
Thank you for joining us in this conversation.
This has been The Path to Publication.
Bye, guys. Have a lovely evening.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye now. And just before you go, here are some more outtakes from the podcast. Please enjoy and let us know what you'd like to see in the next episode.
I have a question for you, Finn.
Tell what you think about me. I buy my own diamonds and I buy my own rings. Just be like grown, Finn.
Feel like the YouTubers. If you make it to the end of this podcast, please comment. Oh.
Just could do better.
Yeah.
But basically, there's the 50 questions about character. There is pretend your character is in a police interview room and just interview them with questions that they would normally answer, like Ghost just stood there. Yes, I'll tell them. But yeah. There's someone knocked the door, I think. But yeah.
Oh no! Have you got an Amazon delivery again whilst we're recording?
No, it came early today. I've got no other packages waiting, so it's nothing to do with Amazon this time. I've learned. I think it's calmed down now. So yeah, so I would go by the. He did that on purpose, didn't he?
I can see a blooper. Whereas with the prose manuscript, it's a lot easier because there's no determination. Ugh, what is with my words today?
Spreading.
Ugh. But I would say that I don't know how to word this. It's where you start editing out a really long pause.
Yeah, that's fine. This will be the Amazon delivery of the podcast.
At least I'm not pausing it to cry again.
You're a plot-driven, character-driven plot person.
Yeah, I can come up with the characters quite easy, and then I wonder if there's a story based around them.
I mean, they're both equal ways of starting a script. Is what's this particular? It can be an idea of a character.
Oh my goodness!
Sorry, it's been a long day.
Hello, welcome to Finn's bloopers. This is going to be predominantly Finn.
Hello, editing Finn.
Have you got anything else on your plan, by the way?
I've got anything else on what? Sorry.
On your plan that you.
On my plan.
Yeah.
I don't know. I've done my bit. I've used it all up. We've been recording for an hour, but I've used up all of mine on my side.
I've used up the ones I had on my side.
Okay, so we'll cut this bit out and we'll just pretend nothing happened.
So yeah, that's how I name my characters. They can contact us at pathtopublicationpodcast@gmail.com. They can come find us on Instagram and Facebook, again, both at Wow.
Hey, we got one for the bloopers! Yay! That's just me. Sorry. I won't make this awkward for you. Carry on.
Oh.
Right. So.
We're doing the outro.
No, we're gonna fanny about for a bit.
Okay, I'll fanny about. I can feel a burp brewing.
Oh, well, shall we wait until you burp and burp into Mike?
No, I'm not doing that again because you turn the volume up.
It didn't need to be turned up, to be honest, but I just did it anyway.
Oh, Finn!
Thank you for joining us in this. Oh god, what was the fuck? What was the outro? Fuck. Conversation. That's what I was looking for. Sorry. I knew I'd fuck it up. I knew I'd fuck it up.
Oh, Finn, your turn.
No, this is Andy's prop. This is Andy's thing. Right. Okay.
Andy's nailing it today.
Andy has been vindicated.